As the consensus 101 coming into the fantasy football season, Christian McCaffrey has quickly become the most polarizing player ahead of your trade deadline. Now he's had 16.7 and 14.6 PPR points in his first two games back, but today we're going to dive into the film and some advanced stats to determine whether you should be buying or selling him at your trade deadline. With McCaffrey, the main thing we're going to be looking for on film is if he's still great at changing directions, if he's still very twitchy, if he can still make defenders miss, because that's what makes him a league winner. The stuff you see on tape where he's just looking like a super athletic freak, that's why he's so good at the running back position. And this right here is going to be a pitch to the outside, and he's going to be asked to take it to the left side of your screen. And we just want to see McCaffrey's decision making, obviously, is just super great all the time. That's more of his football IQ. But here, he's put in a situation where he has two options. He can either become twitchy, get inside, or he wants to get to the second level either way. He has two options, and either way, it's going to require a nice cut, either inside or outside. As long as he just can get through these blocks right here, that's going to be a positive for him. No matter where he goes, he decides to make a move to the outside, makes a nice cut as well, makes a man miss. There's an added bonus, makes another man miss there, and stumbles forward for a few extra yards. That not only checks a lot of boxes, getting a great cut on that first initial decision that he has to make, but also makes another man miss in the open field and looks like that prime McCaffrey that we're used to seeing. This play right here is nothing special. It's going to be another little pitch to the bottom of your screen. You're going to see McCaffrey cut it up. And the main thing here is I kind of wanted to see how well McCaffrey trusts himself if he's moving at full speed. You'll see here, does a nice job. It's not a super big cut, but he is tasked with hitting the hole, not just trying to anchor to the outside. And while this doesn't look like a super complicated play, if he wasn't really affected by that Achilles injury, you'd see a lot of players just try and take the easy route, just try and get 1-2 yards and get to the outside. But McCaffrey trusts his ability. He looks great. Is able to cut that up back towards the middle of the field and gets a nice 5-6 yard gain. On this play, we're going to start to look at some of the drawbacks, and a lot of the film that I watched, really the only concerning part, and we'll dive into this a little more when I take a look at the PFF grades for McCaffrey and also the 49ers offensive line. According to PFF, again, a great film grading tool just to kind of back up what we're seeing, but they do stuff for offensive line, and really the main source for that. They have the 49ers ranked as the 12th best unit, and I think everyone can agree just from watching the games, this 49ers offense is definitely above average, but they're not the reckoning force that they once were a few years ago. And that directly impacts McCaffrey. I hear a lot of people saying, oh, it's not his fault. Yeah, it's really not. But even if he does pass the eye test at the end of this video, he's great overall. He looks 100%. We also do want to take into account and look at some of these plays from the line and see how these bad plays are happening. And if it's happening pretty frequently, if it's not just like a fluke thing, then it is a little bit worrisome about McCaffrey because the 49ers line could hold him back. Now, on this play, we'll see it. It's going to be a pitch to the bottom of your screen. It's going to be a pitch to the right. And we'll watch this play out. McCaffrey gets the ball. He's getting chased down the backfield right away by number 58. Does a good job getting around him. Actually makes a nice cut up here as well. So passing the boxes we're looking for that we initially talked about with that Achilles injury. But after that, this defender, I believe that's 49, is just wide free. And you have two guys on his back to make a tackle. Nothing you can really do there, even though he gets around a defender essentially in the backfield, makes another man miss, and that's still only a 1 yard gain. Something definitely to keep an eye on, and we'll look at more into the PFF stats right now. So the first thing I want to talk about is the 49ers line. We're going to see it in multiple clips. I'm going to talk about how it's having an impact on McCaffrey. But as of late, they're actually ranked 12th, and that's up 2. So they actually had a pretty solid week. But overall, man, it's just Jake Brendel, the center, and the center is arguably the most important piece of the line, holding everything together. Obviously, you have Trent Williams being a stud. He's been amazing, 86.2 PFF grade this season, 4th among offensive tackles. He's the guy there. But you have a rookie, Dominic Pooney, has looked very good. He had a 85.9 PFF run blocking grade against the Bucks, which is fantastic. He's been pretty solid, but Banks is Colton McKiffs is and then Jake Brendel has just really struggled. Obviously, you can see in the article here, highlighted by the 4 pressures he allowed and his 17.6 PFF pass blocking grade. So obviously, it's not going to be much better, helping out in the screen department or in the run game either. It's just a really tough thing when a 49ers line that was once, top 5 has now dropped down to being a borderline, barely above average unit. I do want to move on to McCaffrey as an individual, as we've seen 2 sample sizes of him in weeks 10 and 11. Week 10 had an overall run grade of 60.7, so not very good. Offensive, though, was a 70 and a 70, 60.9. In week 11, pretty consistently, that's solid. But I do want to say that does account for run block, which he wasn't great in. I would just mainly look at the running. But if you look in years past, you see 90.6, 77.6. So it looks like the PFF graders don't think he's there yet. And I think I would have to agree on that front. But some of the advanced stats that I'm looking for as we go over here, yards per route run, 2.06, 0.9. Checks out very good. I think that, backs up the fact that that's very objective. That shows that he's an elite receiving back still. Totally agree with that with what I saw in film. And we'll see later on for yourself as we break down every single one of those important plays. Only had one 10-yard run in week 10. Does bump up to 2 in week 11. So again, it looks like he's getting better as the week goes on, as kind of presented here by the grades. We see that here in the 10 plus to 1 to 2, and then also Long had 13 and 11, about the same for both weeks. So I definitely think that the trend of him getting better is going to continue. I agree with what I saw on that on film, but it is worth mentioning that PFF has him probably, I would probably say he looks almost like maybe 5 points less. I don't have their exact scale, but I'd say he looks pretty close to that 90.6 grade he had with the 49ers, and they only have him at about a 70 so far. So there's a bit of discrepancy there. We'll watch the film to see a little bit more specific details, but it is worth mentioning. I will say it is good to see that PFF doesn't completely disagree and have him in the yellow for both weeks, indicating that they think that he's essentially washed at this point. After looking at some of the PFF grades, we're going to see an inside zone here. McCaffrey is tasked. You should see these offensive linemen pulling going forward for him in a second. And McCaffrey, all he needs to do is hit this hole clean, and he has to let his block set up for on the second level for him. He gets through the hole. He looks pretty smooth getting through that initial burst, getting around the edge, but gets upfield, and that's kind of where it all falls apart. I believe that's Deebo Samuel there, misses his assignment, lets a man come free inside. You have this other offensive lineman here, 65, lets his man get inside, and that allows these 2 defenders to essentially sandwich McCaffrey. You also have this defender coming to help, and that's just 2 guys that should have been blocked. You have the third one, second level one-on-one. I'm not as concerned, but just poor blocking by Deebo Samuel, who does not look good. And also number 65 does not do a great job, and that just ends the play, even though it looked good from the start. McCaffrey looked like he was getting to the second level and had the shot to make a play, kind of just cut down by some poor blocking. After taking a look at these outside run plays, we're going to see a few inside run plays. This is going to be a draw up the middle from McCaffrey. So far, he's passed pretty much every little check mark that I've looked for in him. Being able to cut on a dime, being able to make guys miss, just being super explosive. And we'll also see this in the middle right here. Again, draw, does a good job. Again, glad to see it. I don't know. I mean, maybe his age just kind of potentially you could have questions about him slowing down. But great decision making, gets around, finds the hole. He's always just been a good job, a good player of getting to the second level. Very smart football player. Now he has space in front of him. Does a good job. Also cutting once again, getting a few extra yards versus going down. In reality, that was probably 2 yards, but that's why the 49ers want to feature him. That's why he gets so many touches, because when he does get the ball, he does the little things right. This is going to be more of an inside run as well. It's kind of set up like a little bit of a stretch, halfback dive hybrid. I'm not exactly sure the official terminology for this run, but what you'll see right here, what I'm looking at is McCaffrey being given the ball directly on the backs of these linemen here. There's a clear path for him. He needs to make a cut, And that's exactly what he does. He recognizes in the next frame that he needs to make a cut back to the middle. Does a good job. He sees George Kittle getting out in front of him as well. Does a good job. Kittle kind of turns around. He honestly, now that I'm watching this back a little more, he should have blocked the guy in front of him. Instead, he kind of turns around and misses what potentially could have been a bigger play. But even so, great job by McCaffrey. Just looks very, very good running the football right now. We've seen a lot of positive McCaffrey clips recently, but there's definitely a bunch of negative ones, not only that I've cut out just to save the interest in time, but a lot of them look like this, where they're trying to get him the ball in space. This is going to be a pitch, and there's just nothing for him to do right here. You see the motion across, give it to McCaffrey, and he has a good job. I mean, what he should be doing right now is, you could maybe, as it sets up, we'll watch this play out a little more actually, potentially, room for a cutback. No, cutback's not going to work because you have Levante David lurking in the middle. I think he could have ran there and blew it up. He kind of just forced to run to the outside and hope that Kittle sets up, hope that this blocking match sets up right, and that this defender in the back can't get through until he's already gained a decent chunk of yards. But here, we'll watch this play out. Not really what happens. 71 and I believe that's 44 just kind of collapse as he tries to make a cutback to the middle because this defender forces him there. Just very bad blocking, nothing he can do, and is just kind of stonewalled into, what should be his bread and butter, and getting in space, getting explosive, only gets 1 or 2 yards out of that. Same thing here. It's going to be a handoff to the left, and he's forced with another difficult decision of cutting the ball back or not. And what I want to point out here is he does a good job. There is space right here. Does a good job getting away from running into all this commotion here. Finds the lane, and it's wide open at this point. But obviously you have 13 coming over. It's not going to be long open for much longer because there's no one blocking him. Just a poorly either designed or executed run play, and McCaffrey is stuffed right there once again. We'll go over to the next play, getting him the ball in space on the right side this time. And yet again, he does a good job. These aren't going to look good on the stat sheet, but what is he supposed to do? He's getting overpowered immediately. He hasn't even got back to the line of scrimmage. You see 53 is coming around that edge. 99 has position and leverage right there to make a tackle, and 8 is unblocked. So he's already forced to start chopping his feet without even getting positive yards yet. And he tries to do something, get to the outside, get back to the line of scrimmage, but there's just nothing there for him. That's going to make him look like an inefficient runner. He hasn't been fantastic, but in that, category. But in reality, I don't think this is his fault. And while it's definitely not encouraging to see from the 49ers offensive line, I think overall they still have a good enough unit to the point where I still trust CMC, but I'm not sure that he can be. I think he's going to be an elite player. I think he's going to be a great player. Not necessarily sure he's going to be he's number 1 overall pick worthy this season, even if he had, played all 9 games up to this point. We're going to take a look at the receiving game, which hasn't really changed much either. We're kind of just going to go over the brief points that make McCaffrey so good. Here, he's being utilized as kind of a check down, but really it's a priority check down where they're looking elsewhere from him. You see Purdy's going to get the snap, and he's looking right, he's looking elsewhere, but he has McCaffrey in the back of his mind, and he wants to come back to him immediately at this point when no one's open. He could either try and what he's reading right now is if he can either throw, what he should be reading at least, can he throw this to Debo, or what is this defender going to do? Is he going to come down to crash on McCaffrey, and that will allow him to throw Debo for a touchdown, or is he just going to sit back there and he can check the ball down to CMC? Now, what actually happens is the safety or there might be a linebacker actually. I can't really tell from how far back he's dropped. He stands his ground until Purdy is going forward with the ball, and he comes up. McCaffrey gets a nice catch though, and it's going to be a nice 10-yard gain. Absolutely crucial. What we love to see for PPR leagues, even half PPR leagues, McCaffrey is getting heavily utilized in the receiving game, deep down the field, and on that play you can look at it. Debo would have been the other read there, but even then, Purdy really never looked like he wanted to throw the ball to Debo. It looked like it was going McCaffrey's way the whole time. Purdy and McCaffrey clearly still have that connection. that makes him so good in fantasy football. This is a clip that just makes me feel very, very confident in McCaffrey's utilization going forward. Here, you see him in the backfield on the left side. You're going to see gets motion to the right side, trying to get him in great position to, run off that backfield. They're going to kind of put him on a little bit of a Texas route, a little bit of an in route, a little bit of whatever you want to call it. Just set him in the middle of the field per se. And Purdy's going to get the ball. He's looking about to the middle of the field. You can kind of see his eyes wander left right here when he takes that, drop back on his back foot. But priority check down. As soon as that's not open in a second, gets the ball to McCaffrey. Again, fantastic. Gets about 7-8 yards. And the reception, what we love to see. Even though McCaffrey's not the number one read technically there, you could see he was looking towards the, further downfield. He really only looked for about a second, and unless it was, so wide open, they are still looking to get the ball in McCaffrey's hands very early and very often. This is more of a simple table route from McCaffrey. It just leaks out to the bottom of the screen. And what this play really demonstrates, I'll kind of just let this play through because I just want to see how he handles the ball in space. From the receiving game, is in a one-on-one, makes a guy miss, gets a few other yards right there, and just great with the ball in his hands still, even from the backfield. This is the last play of the film that I want to leave you guys off of, though. It's going to be a deep wheel route, and also shout out Brock Purdy right here, man. Heck of a throw under pressure. You'll see what I'm talking about in a second. They're utilizing him deep down the field as an absolute weapon. Here, he's already the main target, main number one guy in this route. You see, Purdy's looking for him immediately. 92 is coming in here unblocked. Has to get the ball out again. Shout out Brock Purdy. Knows he's going to take a hit. Gets the ball, puts it in a bucket. But McCaffrey, one-on-one with that linebacker, gets, he's wide open one-on-one. No help from the safety until it's too late. Catches it in stride, makes a cut, falls forward for an extra yard. This is the type of McCaffrey we're used to seeing. This is an elite receiving back, still a great runner, and everything I wanted to see about him as a player has totally been answered for me on film. After watching the film, Christian McCaffrey really impressed me a lot, even if the 49ers offensive line didn't. Typically, you're not getting a chance to buy McCaffrey because he's the one-on-one. If you have him, you're not selling him. If someone else has him, they're not selling him. But this little small sample size of him only scoring 15.7 points per game has really created a wave to where there's now a chance to finally buy him if you can. If you have him, I would absolutely not be selling him because he hasn't put up one-on-one numbers just yet. I think as he gets more comfortable, week 1 or week 10, he only had 13 carries. Week 11, he had 19. He'll continue to improve. The 49ers offensive line isn't bad enough to the point where it's going to hold him back severely, and he's that talented. Everything I saw in film, he checks out. He looks fully healthy. And if you get a fully healthy Christian McCaffrey, no matter if the 49ers offensive line isn't that good, I think at that point you're looking at a guy that's going to finish at least 18 points per game on the season. And if the 49ers offense looks a little bit better, if the offensive line, you got the rookies there, can step up, I think he truly does have 20-plus point per game upside, which will win you a fantasy football championship. With that being said, Christian McCaffrey is a guy that I'm absolutely trying to buy in every single league I can if the owner is willing to sell him just a little bit cheaper than he can be worth because he truly can win you a league.